You guys are not going to believe what I'm about to tell you. I'm still reeling from it, and honestly, I need to know if I'm the crazy one here. My own mother, the woman who raised me, brought my freeloading brother to my doorstep to demand $3,000 every single month from me, just because she found out how much I earn. I gave her, well, you'll see what I gave her. But seriously, was I wrong for how I handled this? Tell me, would you have done the same thing? Let me take you back to the beginning, before my life turned into some twisted reality TV show. I'm a software engineer, and I've always been pretty good with computers. Ever since I was a kid, I was that quiet one in the corner, building elaborate digital worlds while my older brother, Mark, was out charming everyone and getting into trouble. Mark was always Mom's favorite, the golden child, even when he was clearly tarnishing everything he touched. He never really held down a job, always bouncing from one get-rich-quick scheme to another that inevitably fell through. Our mom, bless her heart, always enabled him. She'd bail him out, give him money, defend his every poor choice, all while subtly pushing me to be more like him, more outgoing, less me. It was a dynamic I grew up with, one I learned to navigate by keeping my head down and focusing on my studies. I got into a good university, majored in computer science, and eventually landed a fantastic job right out of college. I worked hard, put in long hours, and slowly but surely, I climbed the corporate ladder. My salary grew significantly over the years, to a point where I was very comfortable. But I kept this information largely to myself, especially from my family. I knew what would happen if my mom or Mark found out how well I was doing. They'd see it not as a testament to my hard work, but as a personal ATM. My parents always struggled financially, though my dad was the one working tirelessly to keep us afloat. My mom was mostly a homemaker, and while I appreciate all she did, her financial literacy was, shall we say, non-existent. She believed money just appeared, and if someone had it, they should share it, especially with family. This belief extended to Mark, who she always thought deserved a comfortable life without having to work too hard for it. So, I lived frugally, invested wisely, and quietly built my own secure future. I bought a nice, but not ostentatious, house in a good neighborhood, drove a reliable car, and enjoyed my hobbies. I even helped my parents out occasionally with bills, never large sums, but enough to ease their burden, always framing it as a thoughtful gift rather than an obligation. I was careful, so careful, not to reveal the true extent of my financial success. But secrets, especially those involving money, have a way of getting out. The catalyst for this whole mess was an innocent conversation with my Aunt Carol, my mom's sister, whom I hadn't seen in ages. She was visiting from out of state, and we met for coffee. I made the mistake of telling her about a recent promotion and raise I'd received. I was excited, proud of my achievements, and Aunt Carol had always been someone I felt comfortable confiding in. She's a lovely woman, genuinely happy for my success. What I didn't account for was her inability to keep a secret, particularly from her own sister. Within a week, my phone started ringing off the hook. It was my mom, her voice buzzing with an unusual intensity. She asked me to come over for dinner that weekend, insisting it was important. I had a bad feeling in my gut, a familiar dread that signaled something was up. When I arrived, the table was set for a feast, something my mom only did when she wanted something big. Mark was there too, lounging on the couch, looking smug as usual. My dad was conspicuously absent, probably at work, blissfully unaware of the financial ambush awaiting me. Dinner was initially pleasant, almost unnervingly so. My mom doted on me, praising my intelligence and success, words I rarely heard from her growing up. Mark, for once, didn't make any sarcastic remarks. It felt like a carefully laid trap, and it was. After dessert, when the coffee was poured and the pleasantries had run their course, my mom cleared her throat, a sound that still makes my stomach clench. "Son," she began, her eyes sparkling with what looked like calculated concern, "your Aunt Carol told me about your big promotion. That's wonderful, truly wonderful. We're so proud of you." I mumbled a thank you, my internal alarm bells blaring. Then came the pivot, "You know." She continued, her voice dropping to a more serious tone, "Mark has been having a really tough time lately. His last business venture, well, it didn't quite pan out. And he's got so much potential. If only he had the right support." I braced myself. Mark suddenly perked up, abandoning his phone and looking at me with an expectant glint in his eyes. My mom launched into a lengthy monologue about Mark's unrealized potential, his bad luck, and how he just needed a stable foundation to finally achieve his dreams. This foundation, it quickly became clear, was my paycheck. She then dropped the bombshell. "So, we've been talking, Mark and I, and we think it would be really helpful if you could contribute a little something each month to help him get back on his feet, just until he finds his footing." You know, my heart sank. I knew a little something from my mom usually meant a lot. Before I could even formulate a response, Mark piped up, "Yeah, I've got this incredible new idea, but it requires some upfront capital. And you're doing so well, bro, it's nothing to you, right?" I felt a surge of anger. "What exactly are we talking about?" I asked, trying to keep my voice even. My mom smiled sweetly, a predatory glint in her eyes. "Well, we were thinking, given your new salary, that $3,000 a month would be a good starting point, just for Mark's living expenses and to get his new business off the ground. He's got rent, food, bills, it all adds up. $3,000 per month." My jaw nearly hit the floor. This wasn't a request. It was a demand, delivered with a smile. It was more than some people earn in a month, and she was asking for it to fund Mark's latest pipe dream and his lifestyle. I was stunned into silence, processing the audacity, the sheer entitlement. Mark nodded enthusiastically, as if this was a perfectly reasonable expectation. My mom looked at me expectantly, clearly believing I would just roll over and agree. I finally found my voice. "Mom, that's an astronomical amount of money. Do you have any idea how much that is?" My mom's smile faltered slightly. "It's not much for you, dear, not with what you're making now. We know you're earning a lot more than that. Aunt Carol told me." And there it was. The betrayal, not just from my mom, but the unwitting one from Aunt Carol. The information I had guarded so carefully was now being used as a weapon against me. The evening ended with me making vague promises to think about it, just to escape the suffocating atmosphere of their combined expectations. For the next few days, I was bombarded with calls and texts. My mom sending me links to Mark's business plan, which looked suspiciously like a collection of stock photos and buzzwords, and Mark himself sending me long-winded messages about how I was his only hope. The guilt tripping was relentless. My mom reminded me of all the sacrifices she made for me, how I owed it to my family, how it was my duty as the successful one to help my less fortunate brother. She even brought up old childhood memories, twisting them to fit her narrative of my supposed obligation. I felt a knot of dread tightening in my stomach. This wasn't about helping Mark. It was about them taking advantage of my success, viewing me as an endless resource rather than an individual with my own needs and financial goals. I had worked too hard, sacrificed too much, to just hand over a significant portion of my income every month without a fight. I started doing the math. $3,000 a month was $36,000 a year. That was a down payment on a house, a significant portion of my retirement savings, or even a year's worth of travel. To just give it away to fund Mark's idleness was unthinkable. So that's the situation I was in, and I had to make a choice. My own mother was demanding a massive sum from me to support my entitled brother, all because she found out how much I earned. I felt cornered, angry, and honestly heartbroken by their blatant disregard for my hard work and financial independence. Before I tell you what happened next, I want you to pause and comment below what you would have done in my shoes. Would you have caved under the pressure, or would you have stood your ground? I really want to hear your thoughts on this, because I felt so alone in that moment. I decided I couldn't just give in. This wasn't just about the money. It was about setting a boundary, about protecting myself from a parasitic relationship that would only escalate. I knew if I gave them $3,000, they'd be back for more within months. I needed a plan, something that would send a clear message without completely severing ties, if that was even possible. I called my dad. He was surprised and a little wary when I told him what my mom and Mark were demanding. To my relief, he was on my side. He understood the value of hard work and recognized Mark's endless cycle of dependency. He advised me to be firm but calm, and to make it clear that while I was willing to help in a reasonable capacity, I wouldn't be financially exploited. His support gave me the courage I needed. A few days later, my mom and Mark showed up at my house unannounced. It was clear they expected me to have buckled under the pressure. My mom had that hopeful, expectant look, and Mark was practically preening. So, my mom started, her voice a little too sweet. "Have you thought about what we talked about?" I invited them in, offered them coffee, and sat them down in my living room. I took a deep breath. "Mom, Mark," I began, looking directly at both of them, "I have thought about it a lot, and I want to be very clear. I will not be giving you $3,000 a month." The smiles vanished from their faces. Mark instantly looked offended, and my mom's expression hardened. "What do you mean you won't?" she demanded, her voice losing its sugary edge. "You earn enough, it's your family." I held up a hand. "Let me finish. I earn what I earn because I work incredibly hard. That money is for my future, for my security, and for the life I've built. It is not an endless fund for Mark's aspirations or for anyone else's living expenses." Mark scoffed. "So you're just going to abandon your own brother, after all Mom's done for you?" My mom chimed in. "We raised you. You owe us." This was the moment I had prepared for. "I am not abandoning anyone," I said, my voice firm. "And while I appreciate everything you've done for me, Mom, that does not give you a right to my income. However, I am willing to help, but on my terms, and in a way that actually addresses the root problem rather than just throwing money at it." They both looked at me, momentarily silenced by my unexpected resolve. "Mark," I continued, turning to my brother, "you need a job, a real job. If you are serious about getting your life together, I am willing to pay for you to get a certification in a trade, something practical, something in demand. I will pay for the course, the books, and even a small stipend for living expenses while you are studying, for a maximum of 6 months. But you have to commit to it. Show up and finish the program, and when you're done, you use that certification to get a job. No more schemes, no more relying on others." Mark stared at me, dumbfounded. My mom was sputtering. "A trade? He's too good for a trade. He's an entrepreneur." "Mom." I cut her off. "He's a grown man who needs to support himself. This is the only financial assistance I am willing to provide for him. Take it or leave it." Then I turned to my mom. "As for you, Mom, if you ever find yourself in a genuine emergency, I will always be there to help. But I will not be a steady source of income for Mark, and I will not be blackmailed or guilt-tripped into supporting anyone's lifestyle. What I earn is my business, and it is not a free-for-all for the family." The silence that followed was deafening. Mark eventually mumbled something about how I was selfish and stormed out. My mom stayed, her face a mask of anger and disappointment. She tried to argue, to cajole, to guilt-trip me again, but I stood firm. I repeated my offer for Mark, emphasizing that it was a one-time opportunity, and made it clear that my boundaries were set. Eventually, she realized I wasn't budging, and she left, her parting words a bitter, "I don't even know who you are anymore." The aftermath has been interesting. Mark, predictably, never took me up on the trade school offer. He continued to float around, occasionally reaching out to me for loans that I politely but firmly refused. My relationship with my mom has been strained, to say the least. She still tries to guilt-trip me, bringing up the incident occasionally, but I've learned to deflect and stand my ground. My dad, however, has been incredibly supportive, and our relationship has actually strengthened. He sees that I'm not being selfish, but responsible, and he respects that. It was a tough decision, and the confrontation was brutal, but I honestly feel like I dodged a bullet. I protected my financial future and finally set healthy boundaries with my family. It hurt, yes, but it was necessary. So that's my story. It was a hell of a ride, and honestly, I'm still processing it. It taught me a lot about family, money, and the importance of standing up for yourself, even when it's incredibly hard. Don't let anyone make you feel guilty for your success, and always protect your peace and your finances. Like this video if you were on my side throughout this whole ordeal, and subscribe for more stories like this one. Also, share your final thoughts on this whole mess in the comments section. Did I handle it correctly? Would you have done anything differently? I'm eager to hear what you all think. I'll see you all in the next story.